All right, here we are on another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Morning, Bill. Morning, everybody, or afternoon, or evening, or dead of night.
Whatever time you're listening. Here we are, episode number 327. The title is Rookie Creative give that to you again. Rookie Creative Deal Structuring Ideas. Rookie Creative Deal Structuring Ideas.
Okay.
Here's the description. Are you worried about how to determine the value of an investment property? Or what is the best real estate investment strategy for you? Maybe it's how you my goodness. I got to get my shit together here this morning. Maybe it's how do you find a profitable investment property? Perhaps you think you can't begin investing in real estate without money. Or you might think you need a realtor license, which costs thousands. Are you worried how you can learn about creative real estate? Or worse, have been studying it for weeks, months, years, maybe decades, and have not done a deal yet? Or got lucky and did one or two deals, but the economy changed and now you can't master the consistency of regular monthly income so you can fire your boss or stop making your money with something you don't like to do? In the next 60 minutes, we plan to dumb down how you can get going or be consistent so you can start to get those real estate goals you yearn for all the time. Plus, by the sheer simplicity, you will accidentally get highly motivated and possibly do a deal within the next 30 days just to prove to yourself this whole creative real estate thing is a perfect way to free up your life. There you go.
Mighty powerful words there, Mr. Hawthorne.
Yeah. So, okay, so before we get started, there's a link in the chat or I always say the chat. It says description here. I always say that wrong. So
you get it right. You get it right sometimes.
Yeah. So in the description, there is a link for you to go grab some materials for today's podcast. It will help you implement what we're talking about. Very often they're free. Once in a while, there's a paid link in there, but I don't think I've done that in very many podcasts. So go grab that. Make sure you go in there and check it out. And if you're wherever you're watching us on whatever platform, make sure you subscribe to us and make sure you like us, or make sure you give us a review so we can get some feedback from you on whether we're doing a good job or a bad job, or whether we should keep doing it or stop doing it.
Or you're listening at all.
Yeah, because this is airways, and we want to make sure you're there, out there for real. Also,
yeah,
we record.
I think it's only me and you. I think it's you and I talk, and then you tell me, "Oh, we had like 27,000 downloads last month," and I get nervous.
Yeah, exactly.
People listening. Oh, what should I say?
Exactly.
Is my hair okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the other thing is every Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we actually record this podcast. We pre-record it. And when we do, we live stream it on YouTube and Facebook. So if you go there at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, you want to be part of our conversation, you can type in the comments or the sections where you can communicate, and it shows up on my screen. And Peter and I will answer your questions if you have any, as long as they're pertaining to the podcast. If for some reason you want to answer your other questions, there's two ways you can do that. You can go to WhatsApp Messenger, look for Let's Talk Real Estate. So go to WhatsApp Messenger and search Let's Talk Real Estate. There's a group there, and you can get in there for free. Or if you want to get messages to me directly or have questions for me directly, go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side is a support link, and those come right to me. I check them a couple times a day. Okay? So there you go.
There we are.
All right. We have a lot to cover today, Peter, so let's dig in deep.
Go for it.
An option.
Hmm.
End of podcast. I wish. What is that? As much as I talk about it, I find out that so many people, even my coaching clients, sometimes don't even know what it is.
That's weird. Well, it's a plain English word, but in different fields, in like real estate, there's some specific points to it.
Right.
Even if you might not even know what the word means in English to start off with. So, how are you starting us out on this one, Bill?
So, just what you said, there's a word in the English language that not many people know. It's called nomenclature. And what nomenclature means is that a word, one word, has multiple definitions in multiple subjects. Yep. So, like Peter, you have an option for dinner tonight. Like, in other words, you have a choice, right? Or like in real estate, it would be an option, which I'm going to explain to you how it works, right? Or in the stock market. So depending on the subject, the word has different meanings, and that's what nomenclature means, right? So today we're talking about an option in real estate. Actually, we're going to talk about it in the stock market too.
Okay.
But what is an option? An option is the right to buy something without the obligation to buy something.
So you can,
yeah,
but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, that's a good one stacked in our favor. I'm using that right now.
Yeah. Johnny's here. He's just anonymous today.
Okay, anonymous Johnny.
Good. So an option, the definition of an option is the rights to buy something without the obligation to buy something. Let me give you an example. So in the stock market, let's say you can buy a stock for $400.
Sure.
And you can trade it, right? So you can buy it and sell it, right? But you don't have the $400. What do you do?
Well, you surely don't steal it. That'd be wrong. So let's not do that.
Well, you're allowed to get this thing called an option to buy, or the rights to buy, for say $10.
Okay.
So this $10 allows you to control the stock and make money with it. In other words, this $10 gives you the right to buy and sell this stock if you want to. But you're not obligated to buy it or sell it. You only have to do it if it's beneficial to you to do it.
Right, because the price could go up or the price could go down.
Right.
And is there a time limit on those?
Well, yeah, when you write them, there is, yeah.
Yeah. Figures.
Okay.
So can I ask you a question? I see the benefit to somebody buying it. I've never thought of it, but like, why would somebody sell it that way? It's the same gamble for them that, maybe they'll sell it when it's bad and I'll make money. Is there an easy answer for that?
No, well, I would think the reason why they would sell it is because number one, they'll get a stock sold if it goes up. But number two, if it goes down, they get the option consideration money, right?
Yeah, if you have to unload it at some point. Like, I guess if the time runs out.
I mean, we're talking about buying one stock for $10 or controlling one stock for $10. What if you had $400 and you bought 40 stocks?
Sure.
So now you just spent $400 for the option money.
And
if you don't buy it, the guy that owns the stock just made $400.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good.
So here's an example. Stock is trading today at $400 per share.
Yep.
You pay $10 to have the rights to control it for $400 per share. Tomorrow, the stock increases to $460. You sell it and make a $50 profit.
Right.
You make $50 because you bought for $400, you sold for $460. You made a $60 profit, but you paid $10 for the option.
Sure.
So you made a net profit of $50. But if the stock goes down to $350 tomorrow, you're not obligated to buy the stock. All that would happen
to sell.
Yeah. No, to buy. Because you have to buy the stock to sell it, right?
Oh, like, so it's an option. So, okay, I get it. You buy then sell.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
So you don't have, you're not obligated to buy the stock,
Yeah.
or do anything with the stock.
Yep.
Right. All that would happen is you would have to lose your $10 fee for controlling it during the time period that you control.
Right.
So the only risk you have is a $10 fee.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, the most magical, most amazing, most incredible thing on planet Earth is the same procedure works in real estate.
Mm.
You find a seller who gives you the right to buy, say for $10 or $100. Other than the $100, there's no money down, no risk except the $100.
Mm-hmm.
No credit checks, no capital. None of that's needed.
Yep.
And because you have an option agreement with your seller, this agreement actually by law gives you a minute equity share.
Sure.
Minute, what does minute mean?
Very small.
Very little. Not a controlling share, so you can't take the property away from somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it gives you a very minute equity share.
Sure.
But it's just enough for you to say, I'm part owner in this property, because the law doesn't say you have to have a certain percentage.
Mm-hmm.
It just says that you have to have a percentage. So it could be a half of 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 a percent.
Sure.
Right? Like ridiculously low, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because you are an equity share partner in this property, you now don't need a license because you're selling it because you own it.
Yeah.
Or you have an equity share. So you don't need a license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's how that makes. So does that make sense how that works? The option agreement?
Sure. I mean, you would think in this world people can do what they want, but no, there's laws. Don't do this, don't do that. Laws get passed. You have to be a realtor and all that stuff. But this is a way that somebody could help someone else sell a property, because you just can't come along and sell something for somebody.
Right.
Somehow you're just not allowed to do things. Don't do this and don't do that. But this gives you that right. So that's good.
So the interesting thing to this story, to divert for one moment, is any realtor can go into their multiple listing service, we call it the MLS, and they can find these options and use them. They're in their system.
The paperwork for that.
Yeah, they're in their system.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they call us alternative solutions.
Yeah.
So why doesn't a realtor do that?
I never thought of it. How would that even work for them? Could they take an option on a property?
Yep.
As a realtor or as just a person?
Either or. As long as they disclose they're a realtor.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to go over that in a minute. I'm going to tell you the reason why they would do it. But the point is the reason why they don't do it is because the realtor system is rigged incorrectly. Not realtors, realtor system.
Yeah.
And that is that their commission is paid on the amount of money in the bank at the closing. So they get 5% or 6% of the amount of money that hits the closing. Right? So I have had this happen to me in the past, one of my upsets with the realtor, if you would say that. And it's not technically an upset, it's just that it rubs me the wrong way. So I sell a property, say, for $200,000.
Right.
So the seller signs a contract. Me being the seller would sign a contract for $200,000.
Sure.
Correct? They go doing an inspection, and all of a sudden there's $20,000 worth of repairs.
Yep.
And I agree to the $20,000 worth of repairs. I wouldn't do that, but I'm just saying for a number, right? So how much am I getting at the closing table?
Well, 180 is coming in.
Well, 200 is coming in, but I got to replace the 20 I spent, so it's really 180, right?
Yeah.
but the realtor got paid on 200.
Yeah.
So here's my upset. Who negotiated the repairs? Who spoke to the buyer and the buyer's side about the repairs?
Oh, the realtor did that. The realtor allowed it to go down that much.
Right. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad or anything like that, but the point is that it's costing me money if they're not competent.
Well,
If they don't know how to negotiate.
Yeah, but they have nothing to lose if it goes
Right.
down. That's
Right.
the thing. See that, anytime you have a business or any activity, everyone should have skin in the game, or if something changes, it should affect you if you're making decisions, because
Right.
you wouldn't care otherwise, even subliminally. It's not on purpose or meanly. It's like, I got nothing to lose.
So the realtors I work with, we had that conversation because I would only pay commission on the 180.
And you can arrange that just because you can put it in the contract.
Arrange anything you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Take it or
I
leave
mean,
it.
I don't use realtors a lot anymore. I mean, I did during COVID because I sold a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
Right. And I have a guy that was in part of my coaching group, and he came through my system and then decided to go realtor. And, I don't know, these guys make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. I know some make more than $500,000 a year selling property. They're hustlers. They're doing, 30, 40, 50 deals a year. They're high producers, so they have good incentives with their brokers. The guy that I'm talking about just became his own broker, so he doesn't have to split commissions. That's all good until now. When the market changes, it's good when it's a seller's market. It's not so good when it's a buyer's market.
Yeah, in just one city in our area, instead of having 60 to 100 houses for sale on the MLS, it's about 25.
Yep.
So think if that's your job, your sales pool went from 100 to 25.
Right.
That ain't good.
Right. All right. So we buy this option which, by the way, this option agreement, I think I covered this in a minute, but the option agreement says you have to use legal tender to make it authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Legal tender means paper money.
Mm-hmm.
So you could use $1. Often, in the past, I used to use $10. I use $100. Here's the reason why. It's experience talking right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like to give a check these days, so the check can be negotiated, meaning that it could be cashed, and the stamp and the bank puts a stamp on the back of the check saying that the person that you wrote the check to got their money.
Yep.
Right. So I like to use a check and make sure it gets negotiated. So let me ask you, Peter, if I wrote you a check for $10, how fast are you going to run to the bank and cash it?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I actually sent a guy probably $20, and he never cashed it. I don't think. Yeah. So I see what you mean. So that gives them incentive to go to the bank and negotiate and cash it. So you have evidence that they got the money in case anybody.
In case there's ever a problem, which there isn't, but just in case there's a problem, he or she negotiated the check, which consummated the option agreement.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think about that because it's not a big issue, but you only need to be one issue, because I promise you, it will be on that deal that you're making $9 million on.
Yeah.
And you got a lot riding on it.
Well, it's one of those things, like if you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, nothing happens. If you miss one, then something could happen. Just bad karma maybe.
Exactly.
So, you got yourself protected. You got nothing to lose that way. Why not?
So here's a few example deals of how we would do this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you promise to pay a seller with an option agreement.
Mm-hmm.
You give the seller your $10, or like I said, like we do, we give them $100 because it's more professional, right? And like I said, the law says that it has to be legal tender, which is paper money, right? And it makes things nice and legal when you do that.
That's so funny. You couldn't give them like a gold coin, huh?
Nope.
That's funny.
Yep. That's a whole nother story. That's a story of the creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's
goes that deep. We'll stay out of that one today, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, we haven't done that one in a year or two. Can we do that one day? Because it's been a while. It's a great little story.
All right. So now, if you find a buyer that's willing to pay 220 grand for the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have an option agreement for 200. You sold it for 220 to your buyer.
Right.
You would use your buyer's money to pay the seller the 200,000.
Yep.
And keep the 20 grand profit, just like the stock market example.
Yep.
Now here's the cool thing. Like I said before, if the price of the house goes down to 180, you don't have to buy it. You just let your $10 or $100 go away. It's your option fee. The only thing you risked was the $10 or $100.
Yep.
So how's there any risk? So technically, I'm going to get into this later, but technically, are we buying and selling houses?
Not really. It's the paperwork that goes along with it. Because I mean, technically, you sell the option paperwork to the buyer, don't you?
Right. So Rockefeller once said, I think it was, I just went blank. Nelson Rockefeller once said.
Was it Nelson or the original John D?
No, it was Nelson.
Was it Nelson? He goes back away.
He was John D's, I think, son or grandson.
It was a family. So yeah, they're all in cahoots.
He said the way you create wealth or keep wealth is to own nothing and control everything.
Yeah, because when you control it, if the money goes up, you get to keep it. The money goes down, you don't own it. You don't have to suffer the consequences.
So let me interpret that, because nobody's ever asked me this question. Like, let me interpret that in my words. I'm Bill Splitman.
Sure.
So here's what happens. You pay attention to the assets and control the assets, not the liability. That's what that saying says.
You really have no liability if you're not the owner.
Right. So if you sign an option agreement and you can control this property, you're controlling the asset. You have no liability. There's no downside. There's no. I mean, other than your downside. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There is a downside. Your $100, but it's a controllable, predictable, willing to liability.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, you know what you're going to lose. $100. Yeah, I'll do it.
So my question to my listeners are, what's your problem? I mean, I'm going through this now because I'm one of the founders of Creative REI Reply, as you know. We partnered with REI Reply, David and Susan, and Sean and I, who's my other partner, right? Mm-hmm. And for the first time in my career, I am actually extremely blown away. I thought I've seen everything in real estate until now, right? And the thing is I have coaching clients I've had for years that just didn't make phone calls. They didn't do anything. And now that they're in the Creative REI Reply system, all of a sudden they're bringing me deals in the coaching calls. They're like doing things because we made it so easy.
Yep.
It's push button. I mean, not the business, but getting the leads. I mean, we're putting leads in their accounts every day.
Yep.
And God bless Sean. Sometimes I want to hit him because he aggravates me. But sometimes I want to hug him because he's amazing. I mean, we have that love-hate relationship, right? So the point that I'm making is that we, meaning me with the ideas and him with the brain power of technical stuff.
Yeah, the software, the computers, he's good at all that stuff.
We have just created a calculator. So when you're on the phone with your seller, you put in 5 or 6 numbers and it tells you which deal to do. Then when you click on the button that brings the deal up, my 7 deals, it brings the deal up. On the left side of the page is your numbers. On the right side of the page is a checklist of all the things you got to go over with the seller before they can do the deal. My intention is to expand my business with virtual assistants to start doing closing. I've been, as well as I have been, for 20 years, I've been trying to train acquisition managers. It's the hardest thing in the world to do because there seems like there's so many variants. Or I'll spend time to train them, a year, sometimes 2 years, and then they feel like they can go do it themselves and they go start their own business.
Yep.
Right. So I don't know why I'm bringing this up right now, but my point is that why wouldn't you do this option agreement? Why wouldn't you do this? Especially the last couple of years. I mean, I know you're doing one right now, and it's not going so well because one of the things that we missed is that when you have an option agreement with somebody to sell, you have to have a unique selling proposition that the realtor doesn't have. And a unique selling proposition in this particular case is to be at a lower price than the realtor, which is easy to do with your seller because your seller is going to pay 12 to 15% in closing costs. So if they give you that much of a discount, because that's how much they're going to get if they sell with a realtor. Yeah. Right. So like on a $200,000 house, if you were to go sell for, let's say a $200,000 house, they give you an option for $180,000. You could put it on the market for $185,000. Sure. Make $5,000 and be way ahead.
That's right.
The realtor's going to put it on for $200,000. So you're $15,000 below market value for the same house, and you're going to do all the same work the realtor can do. So that's your unique selling proposition, is to make sure you get that. Make sure that you explain to your seller the closing cost, and they know how much the closing costs are, and that. Oh, yeah, by the way, most often the realtors, which is changing now because the market's changing, but most often a realtor will want 6 months. We sign these options for no longer than 90 days. Yep. Very often we get them done in 30 days. Right? But, and the last thing I want to say about options, which I'm on a diversion right now, is probably the most foolish thing that I could absolutely say in my career. I know that you know, and I know that our listeners know, because 327 podcasts, I've been trying to convince people to go do this. And here's my punchline. If I were to check out today, which God bless me because I'm not ready to do that, so I'm not doing that. But if I were to check out today, here would be my last words on the podcast.
Yes.
If you're talking to a seller and you're not sure, the only way to make money, the only way to do this is to know how much you can sell for.
Right.
And then just buy it or control it for less money than that. So if you know you can get $200,000 and you know you can get $1,500 a month, then you just need to negotiate with your seller for less than $200,000 and less than $1,500 a month. And if you can't do that, then you just do what we call a slot deal, a sandwich lease option transfer, and you just buy the option and sell it. Right? But the point is if you know how to buy, if you know how much you can sell something, it's a lot easier to negotiate how much you can buy it for. It's just that simple.
Well, that goes with anything. You could be selling pencils. As example I like to use.
Right.
I've sold guitars. I've sold cars. Like used to sell cars. I'd sold a couple here and there just for the hell of it. And it's not that complicated. You can find out what something's worth, buy it for less, and sell it. In the case of our current market right now, has gone from a seller's market to not really a seller's market. So in a seller's market, unique proposition is I have a house, and you could have a shack and it's gone.
Okay, so stop right there because that's my exact point. So there are a lot of listeners right now that are going to say, well, how do I know how much I can sell it for? That's a good question. If you're new, you don't know. And if you underestimate it and be too conservative, you won't make a deal. So here's my parting words if I were to use them.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on in your head? Think of what I'm telling you.
What?
You could sign, which Sean does this, my other partner. You can sign an option agreement with somebody. If you're not sure of if you can sell this property, you say to the seller, look, I'm not sure. I think your numbers are a little bit strong, but I'm not your buyer, so I'm not sure. So how about we do this? We sign an option agreement for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Let me bring the house to the market, AKA put it on Facebook Marketplace, put it on Zillow rental section, and get people to come tell you what they're willing to pay.
Yeah.
The price, the down payment, and the monthly payment.
Yep.
You're surveying the public that want to buy that house. So if your seller's saying I want 200,000 and they want 1,500 a month, and you go out and you come back with, well, I had 30 people that were interested or 300 people that were interested.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the offers that I'm getting.
Yeah.
So now you know how much you can sell the house for. So now you go back to your seller, and you say to them, hey, the highest number I have is 190,000. I can't pay 200. You're all of a sudden you're much more confident, and your conversation with that seller completely changes.
And that works when you're not only just doing a straight option deal, but say you want to do other deals like a lease option, or you want to take the mortgage over. And that's, you're making a commitment to pay that every month, and you're not sure. Now you do, like, because I heard you've been doing this. I'm thinking, I hadn't gone through one of these deals with you and Sean to see how it actually worked out. But you want to do a more serious type of deal, you can test it this way and then come up with the correct numbers for a subject to. I can't pay that much rent, or I can pay, you can figure that out in just those 30 days.
Or everybody says it's worth 190, but they say that the deck's got to be fixed, and that's 10 grand. Or you got to replace the roof. I would buy it, but the roof is bad. Or they come up with things that you didn't know about, like the furnace is like broken and it's not running, and you didn't know that.
Or there's leaks in the house.
Whatever, right? Yeah. The point is that you're not going to get trapped into a deal if you do it this way.
Right. That's really smart, because you're talking about just straight option. That's one thing. You don't have you have no big concern. But if you buy it a different way, like taking over payments or something, you're committed then.
Right.
And this is a way to test it before you even do that. That's be clever. I like that.
My point is that it's not even all that. Although what you said is 1,000% correct. My point is that if you're being a coward, or you're being ultra conservative, which is a higher harmonic of fear, by the way.
Yep.
Right. So if you're being ultra conservative and you're pretending like you're not afraid, but you are, you're making sure everything works before you do it. This is the way to do it.
Yeah.
So you sign an option agreement. So as we go through the rest of this podcast, I want you to understand this is the power of the option. The power of the option is not the option. It's how you use it. It's the implementation, the execution of how you use it. And we're going to talk about a couple more of those examples, like, for example, putting a lease attached to it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the ability to control this property so you feel better. I mean, think about this. You're worried about negotiating. You're worried about what to say to the seller. Just say to the seller, well, give me the property for 90 days and let me go put it on the market and let's see what everybody says. And then I'll come back and I'll give you real numbers.
Yeah.
Give them $100 or $10 or whatever you're going to give them and do it. You're not sure of a neighborhood. You're doing out of state. Then go. Go.
Yeah, especially out of state. You're not even there. So, what do you think would be a good time window? 30 days up to 90?
Yeah. Well, 30 days. It depends on your timeline, but Sean does it in 30 days because Sean does it because we're doing it in Ohio, and I can't believe he did this, but he did it. Right. He actually has the owner of the property show the property.
If they want to sell it.
Right. So anyway, so we diverted there, but let's go back to the option. So if you have an option for 200, you sell for 220, you get the 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So here's the cool thing: the price of the house, if it goes down to 180, you don't have to buy the property or take the property. You just lose your option fee.
Right.
All right. Now let's make this exciting. Okay. So right now,
it was pretty good as it was.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about. So here's the other thing. So it took me literally, I don't know how many years, 15 years, 18 years to learn this. A long time. A long time. And it's so simple, that's why I couldn't learn it. Because it was under my nose and I didn't know it. I couldn't see it. The absolute positive stake in the ground to know whether a deal is good or bad, there's only one formula that does that. We talk about it all the time. So when you used to, and other coaching students used to give me prospect suspect forms, because that's what we used back in the day, and it had all the information on one piece of paper. I would look at it, and here were the 3 questions I would ask. How do I get money now? How do I get money monthly? And how do I get money later? If I could get all 3 of those in a deal, like buy on a subject to and sell on a lease option, it was what Ron LeGrand calls golden geese that lay golden eggs. Right?
Yep.
So that's the Terminator right there. That's the formula that I use. So when I'm looking at a deal, which by the way, we've talked about this in other podcasts, money now, money monthly, money later. Money now, right? Let me see if I wrote this down here. Money now is chunks of dough. It's the deposit, the option consideration deposit you're going to get from your buyer.
Right.
That's spendable cash. That's the way you're gonna build reserves. That's the way you're gonna pay down debt. That's the way you're gonna like buy cars and go on vacations.
But it's also your capital to do other types of deals.
Right.
Right. If you need some repairs, if you want to do some renovating, there's your capital.
Right.
Money
monthly is the difference between what you're paying and what you're collecting. Right. So that's the money that's going to get you to fire your boss and give you your freedom and get you your time back. Right. Yeah. So like if you need $6,000, if you need $4,000 a month to live, which is $50,000 a year. Okay. Well, you should figure out how to get $6,000. You want $2,000 to handle all the mishaps, the not payers and the broken houses and the reserves and all that kind of stuff. So you make $6,000, right? And you need $4,000.
Yep.
So some months you put $2,000 in a bank. Some months you spend that money to like fix a furnace. Right. So here's a magical thing. If you average $500 a deal, which is very low for us, and the reason why is because of our down payment assistance program, which I'm not going to go over right now, but we average on a $200,000 house, I average about $800 or $900, sometimes $1,100 a month.
It's amazing,
right?
Profit, cash flow, profit
per month.
Yeah, not.
But
right.
if you average 5 properties, $500 per property, you need 12 properties to retire. So the question is how long is it going to take you to get those 12 properties?
That's right.
Right. So this takes away the whole, is this real? Isn't this real? Right. So money now, money monthly, money later. Money later. I was doing money. So money monthly is the cash flow, and that's what's going to get you free. Money later is your retire early money. That's your wealth. You start getting $30,000 to $100,000 in equity in a property, and that will build your wealth.
Yep.
Right. So obviously we talk about that a lot. It will generate enough income to fire your boss and retire early. So here's the points. If you're doing a sandwich lease option transfer, there's no equity in the house, or the seller's not willing to give you equity, like a free and clear person that wants full asking price and won't do payments, you can sell and make $5 or $10,000 or whatever you're going to make as a transaction
engineer.
No, as a transaction fee, although it's not a fee, it's kind of illegal to say that, but as a transaction payment, right? If you're only making money now, then you don't spend a lot of time on it. But if you have a subject to deal where you're paying $150,000 for a $200,000 house, and you can make money now, money monthly, money later, and it's the golden goose egg, you can afford to spend a lot more time on that deal than on the slot deal.
Yeah, because the slot deal will be gone in a month or two straight. The other, you'll be there for a few years. You're in it.
Well, you'll get 10 grand now.
Yeah.
You'll get your $500 to $900 a month positive cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get probably $60,000 or $70,000 in equity in the back end.
Yep.
So you can afford to spend time. So this money now, money monthly, money later concept is a lot more profound than what we make it, right? The point is that when you're doing deals, that's what you want to look at. So the reason I bring that up is because what we do is we take these option agreements and we attach them to leases, like I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So once we connect the option to leases, our buyer pays all the expenses while waiting to execute the option to buy and get qualified for a new loan.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this. The realtor doesn't pay all the expenses for the seller when they're trying to sell.
Nope.
So why are you nervous about talking to a seller about this?
Mm.
Right? Plus, these agreements can range from 90 days, which is common. They can range from 1 day if you want, but 90 days, right? And that's usually just an option without a lease, to 100 years if you want.
Mm.
I mean, most people listening to me right now don't know this, but there are multiple properties that you probably drive by every day that have 100-year leases on them, 100-year options and leases. For example, McDonald's. They don't buy the land often. They just lease the land for 100 years and they put their building on top of it, and that's it. They don't own the land.
So a business would do that because they plan on being there as long as possible. I mean, it sounds 100 years. Who lives that long? So it's not a personal thing,
Right.
But a business would do that.
Right. And I'm not saying McDonald's does that, but there's a lot of businesses that do that. A lot of factories,
Yeah.
They'll come in and they'll put a building up. They'll amortize the building over the course of 27 years, so they get their money back, and they could. So they don't have to. The reason why they would do that is they don't have to come up with $1 million, $2 million, $5 million that the property's worth, and they could just rent it.
Yeah.
So 100-year leases and 100-year options they've been around for a long time.
Hmm.
So the cool thing about this is when we write these leases, they're not technically leases. So I had this conversation the other day in one of our support calls for Creative REI Replay, because we do them once a week when you get involved with that system, right? And I explained to somebody this. I think I did it here once too before. So listen to what I'm going to tell you, because this is very, 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 very profound.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't sound it when I say it. Viewpoint. Viewpoint is where you're looking at something. So you and I could sit at a table across from one another with a bottle of water in the middle of it. We're both looking at a bottle of water, but you see something different than I do because there's a label on it.
Sure.
So that's a point of view. Your point of view is different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's commonalities between them, but it's very specific to where you are sitting.
Sure.
Okay. So viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So a realtor can do a lease with an option. We can do a lease with an option.
Mm-hmm.
The realtor will put the lease first, then a by the way on the option. So the realtor will go in, because what are they getting paid on? They're getting paid 1 month's rent to lease this place.
Right. If they're doing, okay, I got you.
So they do the lease first, and then a by the way, yeah, we'll give you an option to sell. If they think about it, most of them don't.
Mm.
We have a different viewpoint. We do the option first. You're buying this property, and oh yeah, here's a lease until you get approved. It's a different viewpoint.
Yep.
So by doing that, what happens is when you're a realtor and you're leasing first and then adding the option, it puts you into the landlord mentality. When we do option first and then rent. It puts us in the owner mentality.
Right. And that's a big difference when you have somebody in a house thinking, this is my house, I'm taking care of it, instead of this is my rental car, I don't care.
Right. So that's what we talk about is if you were to rent a car, you're not going to wash it. You're not going to, put air in the tires unless you have to. You're not going to, you're not going to vacuum it. You're not going to do a tune up. You're not going to do brakes. None of that. You're just renting it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you own it, you'll do all that stuff. You'll take care of the car because you want it to last longer.
Unless you're a girl.
Oh, here we don't want to start with that. I know about your wife.
The husband, we're going on a trip, 3 days. Where hey, you want to clean the car? I says, why? I says, no, if you want to, you can. I'm like, okay, I'll do it, just to clean it up a little bit, so you hit the road. Because when you get back, it's going to be a disaster by the time you get home.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that the point is, when somebody buys a house on an option, they think it's theirs and they will take care of it. It's a different viewpoint.
It's just a different way to look at it.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, if they're excited, I mean, I've heard people on the phone with you on some of your calls. I'm calling about the house you have. It's rent to own, or how does that work? Oh, you can blah blah blah. You can lease the house for a while, then buy it. The guy goes, "Honey, you're not going to believe this. We don't have to rent anymore." They're freaking out on the phone. We can buy this house. What do you mean we can buy it? We rented it for a while, then we buy it later. Like, what? And then they'll take care of it because they care. It's like a golden opportunity for people. By the way, the first time I heard you say in one of your early lectures I attended was, you take this $200,000 house and sell it for $220,000. I thought, who's stupid enough to do that? So in case anybody's stuck on that, these people who buy on this lease option system are thrilled to do that because it's that or nothing. They won't get a house otherwise. They'll be renting and renting and renting and renting forever. So they just saved a lot of money by overpaying it.
But it's also, first of all, they're going to find you're a needle in a haystack. But more importantly, it's money versus time. So if you were to buy my computer today for $1,000, give me $1,000 in cash, you gave me $1,000. Yep. If you were to buy my computer today for $1,000 and swipe your credit card and made 24 payments, you're paying more than $1,000.
Yeah. And
that's how we do it with the houses. It's the American way. I didn't make it up. I just use it.
No, and from their viewpoint, they're also saving all the money that they won't have to rent forever. They'll finally own something. They're paying a little more to save a lot.
So let's put the cap on this, okay?
Yeah.
So when we do this lease option the way we're talking about, and we make our buyer an owner, technically us or whoever is putting the money in is giving them an intermediate loan until they can get approved, which, by the way, better than 80% of people looking for a house don't qualify for a bank loan. So there's a lot of people that want these houses that there's more of them than people that are actually buying houses, right? But now watch this. When we do this way, we're now putting our seller, who's usually letting us borrow the money by making payments, right? We're making them the banker, right? They're in the banker position.
Yep.
So here's my question. When was the last time you called your lender and asked them to fix your toilet?
I did last week. They hung up the phone on me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. All right. So now let's do some math on this lease option concept.
Hey, Bill, I have a suggestion. I think we have to rename lease option.
Okay.
Option lease. Just saying.
Yeah. Peter's humor. The dog didn't like it. He barked in the background. Or he thought it was funny, one or the other, and he's laughing.
Yeah. Got the door closed, the drapes closed. I got the music playing in the other room.
The seller gives you an option to buy for $200,000. And you agree to pay the monthly expenses of $1,700 per month.
Right.
But it's worth $200 and $1,700 a month. There's no profit. There's no margin there for you. But they owe that much, so they're not going to go lower.
Right.
How do you make money now? Right. You could sell the house, like we were just talking about, for $210 and $1,700 a month with a minimum of a 2-year lease with an option to purchase.
Yep.
Which means you bought the option rights to buy for $100 from your seller with a maximum of 2 years to pay off the seller.
Yep.
Your buyer will give you, your buyer will give you $10,000 deposit and still owe the seller $200,000.
Yep.
So we bought for 200, we sold for 210. The buyer gives us $10,000 for an option consideration deposit
Mm-hmm.
that we only paid 100 for,
Mm-hmm.
and they still owe 200. The result, you promised your seller 200 grand. Your buyer paid you 210 and gave you 10 grand down.
Mm-hmm.
So your profit is the 10 grand now.
Yeah.
Within the next 30 days, if you do as we talk about today.
That's right.
This has been used. I think Joe McCall did a good job with this.
Mm-hmm.
He called it flipping lease options or wholesaling lease options.
Right.
Right. So once you learn this concept, why would you ever want to do a wholesale deal? Wholesale deals are ugly houses. These are pretty houses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is called flipping lease options for huge profits. Or on Bill's planet, it's called a sandwich lease option transfer or a slot deal.
Yep.
Right? So technically, what did we do? We bought a piece of paper for $100, the option agreement. We found a buyer that will be willing to pay us 10 grand for it. We assigned that lease from us to them. So now it's a second document. We assigned it. So we had the leases, the option is there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we agreed to the seller is on that piece of paper. When we find our buyer, we're giving him that same piece of paper. So he sees what we paid.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives us, and then we assign it to him. And when he gives us 10 grand, we give him the assignment and he is now in control of that option.
Yep.
Now, before we end off, so that makes sense, right? So we're buying and selling a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the problem with why people don't do this? I don't understand. What is the fear? What is the animosity? I don't get it.
But I've thought about it because I've been in the middle between you and the people and doing some of these myself. And having an option. Now, this is the first option I've done. I've done a few other types of deals. I don't say a lot, but a few other types. And it's given me, like, I don't worry at night. Like, I sell it or I don't sell it. I paid $100. I put a little time, little paint and some effort, but not a big deal. The only thing to worry about is, I might not make money, and you might lose something you hope to get. You might fail to accomplish something. That's it.
So your ego.
And that's not even ego. It's just, I want to make some money. It's not an ego thing. It's just like, I want to make some money. I hope I manage. If not, an opportunity went by. And that's the worst of it. So it's not fear like something bad will happen. It's like disappointment that you might not accomplish something. But you know what? In my situation, the market actually changed right under my feet. You know how things shift around. The price online went down about $6,000. Sellers kind of dried up a little bit or whatever. But it's fine because I only paid the $100 and a little effort, a few $100 here and there. So it's not a fear thing, but a more disappointment if you don't make the money. But there's no fear in this. So it's okay. I learned so much to do this. I found out how to get the house on the MLS for $99 with no realtor. I learned a lot from this.
Right.
So it's totally fine. It's just some disappointment that you don't accomplish something.
So let me see if I get this straight, Peter. You're saying that you paid $100 for this deal to get probably about a $10,000 education.
Yeah.
Because if you went and paid somebody for coaching, it'd be probably at least 10 grand, right?
And there's stuff you can't learn by paying. You have to be there and go through it.
Right.
And I've paid more than that for church donations or go on vacation or just blow money on something I don't need and buy another guitar. It was so worth it to me,
Agreed.
And I keep seeing what I can accomplish with these things. I mean, you've told me several times the house looked like a piece of crap when I started. In 2 weeks, it was like, holy crap, this looks. I got compliments how nice it was compared to, oh my God, I show you pictures how it was before. In 2 weeks, boom, looked pretty. Anyways, so you don't have to fear if you use options. You might have some disappointments if you don't make big money. That's the worst of it. But most of the time you will. Buy 5 of these, you'll win 4 out of 5 times. It's not 5 out of 5 times.
Right.
Do it.
I agree. Thank you.
Welcome.
Now, before we end off, I want to cover the $10,000 down payment thing that confuses a lot of folks.
Oh. What's the
Because I get a lot of support tickets. So like they think that because they put the $10,000 down now, they need more money 2 years from now to close with.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
so here's what happens. Because you're using an option agreement
Mm-hmm.
and you're part owner, you can do this without a license, as I said, legally.
Yeah.
Realtors don't like it and will spout that it's illegal, but it's not true. Number one. Number two, the 10 grand is at first option consideration money
Mm-hmm.
until the buyer triggers the option and says they want to buy.
Right.
So they give you $10,000, and that $10,000 is placed against the option agreement.
Mm-hmm.
The option agreement says that you have the right to buy or sell this property, and you're not obligated to do it. So you can walk away.
Mm-hmm.
But it's non-refundable money. If they
Right.
walk away, they lose the 10 grand. So
Yep.
the only place that the $10,000 shows up is at the closing.
Right.
They don't get it back, and they know that before they go in. Right? So here's what happens. They have an option agreement. We'll say 18 months in, they have to, the option agreement tells you that you have to send, like suppose I'm the person, you're the buyer, I'm the seller.
Yeah.
You have to send me something in writing saying, I want to execute my option.
Mm-hmm.
I want to buy the property.
Yep.
So you have to send me something in writing so it all stays legal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nowadays, we consider text and email. It used to be in my day. I would give people, when I give them an option, I would give them a letter and say, just sign it and mail it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, here's what happens. As soon as you send me the letter saying you want to execute your option agreement, I am going to draft or write up a purchase and sales agreement.
Yep.
A purchase and sales agreement is a roadmap for the closing, which, by the way, the definition of a closing is deed changes names.
Right.
So the purchase and sales agreement is the roadmap of how we're going to conduct this transaction to get to the point of deed changes names.
Boy, that's really, really clear when you put it like that. That's good.
Right. So the purchase and sales contract explains what everybody needs to do. And it talks about the money, the inspections, it talks about your rights, it talks about default, it talks about if you back out, who keeps the deposit.
Yeah. How long, all the timing, when
yeah.
everything happens. 2 weeks later, then 4 weeks later, then by this time, yeah.
Most of the time, it's purchase and sales contracts are not written for more than 45 days. Most of the time. They can be, but most of the time they are. Now, here's what happens. The $10,000 that was option consideration deposit gets placed on the purchase and sales agreement, and it goes to a deposit.
Yep.
So it goes from option consideration money to the purchase and sales contract, which is a deposit. Mm-hmm. So if they pay $200, they only owe $190, and it represents itself that way on the purchase and sales contract.
Wait a minute, back. So let's say the house you bought it for $200, and they purchased it for $210, right?
Okay, yeah.
So
I changed the numbers, yeah.
Okay, so and that's just to follow the original scenario. So in that scenario, they say to the bank.
So hang on. So you're skipping a step. So they gave me $10,000 to have the right to buy.
Yeah.
Now they're buying. So the purchase and sales contract, that 10 grand goes on the purchase and sales contract saying, I already gave them 10 grand.
Right. And the price is $210, right?
Right.
So out of the $210, they gave 10. So the bank thinks, okay, it's $210, and they gave 10.
Right.
So they can see that, because if you said it was $200,000, they still owe $200,000. There would be no deposit. So the $210 reflects the 10 down, leaving $200.
And all you need to do to make your life easier is to record the $10,000 payment. I did it. I've done it for many years with a certified check. Take pictures of the check. I actually take pictures of the deposit that I make, and I give it to the bank. Nowadays, you can do that with electronic mechanisms. You know what I mean? But the point is that when I do the transaction, I record excuse me, I record or document they gave me the 10 grand.
Right, because the bank wants to know that, and you and the seller and the buyer, everybody needs to have that, so the deal goes through. The bank has to know that, or they wouldn't like it. So it's important to have it documented to prove it.
So the point or the moral of the story is it's the same money, two different names, two different documents. There is nothing that the bank does not care when the money was received. That's the misconception. Like, for example, suppose I had a rent to own with you, and you were applying $200 a month to my down payment money.
Right. Every month, $200 went to additional toward the down payment.
Right, and that's $2,400 a year, right? So suppose I went 10 years giving you that money, I would have paid $24,000, right?
Sure.
So 10 years later, I can get a mortgage, and that $24,000 would be applied to my down payment.
Well, think of it in car leasing. You put $2,000-$3,000 on a car lease, you pay all that money every month. And at the end of 2-3 years, you go, never mind, I don't want the car. It's gone. Right. The deposit money's gone.
Right.
But like my son just held on to his lease because the prices got so high for cars. He said, screw it, I'm keeping it. So now the down payment money that he paid went towards the car because he bought it. Same deal, right?
Exactly right.
Cool.
So even if you collected the 10 grand and 2 years ago, the bank will still allow it. So there is no confusion with the 10 grand and having to do a mortgage over again and all that.
Good.
So just make sure you have evidence or proof that the buyer gave you the money and you're fine. Okay. By the way, your seller and your buyer knows all this because you're totally transparent when you do this deal.
No, they have to expect us. We're going to make some money. We're not doing this for charity. Yipes.
Right. So plus, well, not only that, but on a $200,000 house, $10,000 for your time is a lot cheaper than if the realtor did it. Because even if it's 10%, that's 20 grand.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, by the way, the biggest benefit that we have to a seller is when a seller uses a realtor, they pay the selling costs. When they do it with us, the buyer pays the selling cost, not the seller. It's a huge benefit.
Yep.
Right? Because the seller's allowing a time delayed or a cash out delayed sale. They should get something for it. And what they're getting for it is the savings of all the fees, which is thousands and thousands of dollars in any transaction.
And vice versa, the buyer, because you're getting the opportunity, just have to agree. We just built it into the arrangement that they pay the costs as part of the.
And I've had a lot of questions about well, how do you do that? Well, the way you do that is that first of all, you reduce the fees drastically because you're doing the work instead of the realtor, instead of the banker, instead of all those other people that are grabbing fees. Because in the realtor system, we called it the real estate mafia, like episode 90, I think it was, right? Yeah. So we should do that again. The real estate mafia, right? And basically what happens is you're going to have in the transaction, you have a banker, you have a realtor, you have an insurance guy, you have a title guy. All those people are fee-based professionals. You're becoming the fee-based professionals and getting all that money for doing it. Right? So we get our buyers to pay it all only because until they found us, they did not qualify to buy a house and are willing to pay extra for having a colorful financial past. Right? It's the American way, I guess. Right?
Happens. And these aren't bad people. I mean, a lot of reasons that you can't get a mortgage.
Well, there's a lot of things like divorces and like job transfers. I mean, COVID was a perfect example of that. A lot of people lost their jobs because of COVID, or they weren't working. And
well, you had a guy that had a bad skiing accident, wrecked his leg or something, and he couldn't work for months. Things happen.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
There's a way to get out of that stuff. Help people.
So hopefully that helped our rookies and kind of open your eyes up. I hope that you see that it's not as risky as you think. The only thing that's holding you back is you calling a seller. The only thing that's holding you back. you need to call a seller. And we have lots of material on that. And or you can get involved with Creative REI Replay. Just type in Creative REI Replay into Google, you'll find it. And it does all the work for you. So you can do it that way too. All right, good. So please, 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 please make sure you leave us, subscribe to our channel wherever you're listening to us, whether it's on podcast or YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever you are. Subscribe to us. Leave us a comment if you could. Also, make sure that you go to the description and find the link, because there's a free link in there for you that will help you do all of this. I think I put, I don't remember because I did it a few weeks ago, but I think I have a 10-part series that actually shows you how to do all this step by step. Even gives you the paperwork for the deals. So there you go. I have a way that if you're worried about it, for $25 a month, you can get a lawyer in your backyard that will help you review your documents before you use them. That's pretty special. Okay.
That's really good.
Yeah. So hopefully we've helped you untangle some things in your mind today, and you can get going and start doing some deals. I will tell you that I am in a tizzy in my own mind, and I expect soon that what I'm going to come out with is I'm going to come out with the 2023 wealth formula. And I'm still working on it, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a weekend class, like a couple hours on a Saturday, a couple hours on a Sunday. I'm still working on it, but the point is that with the market changing from sellers to buyers, it's an epic time to do this, because it's kind of like appreciation in a deal, because like you buy for 100, tomorrow it's worth 110, next week it's worth 120, and you're not doing anything, you just happen to be in the right place at the right time. That's what this new 2023 wealth formula is going to be, is to show you how to get in that path of progress so you can almost make money accidentally, because it's coming. It's here. It's not coming. It's here. Mm-hmm. Mainstream TV. I turned on the news this morning to watch the weather, and the main headline was how interest rates are up 7.2%. And mortgages are down 42 or 48%. Yeah. And it's happening. So if you get involved with some of the things we're talking about for not a lot of money, you could make yourself wealthy almost by accident.
Ahead of the curve. This is how you get into it. Yep. Not after the fact.
Yep.
So right. Hey, count me in.
Yeah. All right, cool. So thank you for listening to us. Next week's podcast, or as we call it, next podcast, which is episode number 328, is called 3 Great Rookie Conflicts in Creative Real Estate Today. And you are going to be amazed at what this podcast probably took me 4 hours to write it. They normally take me an hour and a half.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's where you were yesterday.
Yeah. All right, cool. So make sure you join us for episode number 328. Thank you for all the support. Don't forget to give us a like or a hooray or a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whatever it may be. And flourish and prosper, man. Over and out.